Welcome to this deep dive.
Oh, okay.
Today we're exploring the life and work of Gurudev's Sri Ravi Shankar.
All right.
You might know him as a spiritual leader,
Uh-huh.
a humanitarian, or maybe you're just discovering his work now for the first time.
Right.
We've got excerpts from 2 online biographies,
Okay.
and I have to say his journey is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
We're talking about someone who was reciting ancient Hindu scriptures
Wow.
at 4 years old.
Yeah.
And later developed a powerful breathing technique called Sudarshan Kriya on a
Right.
period of silence.
Mhm.
And then his organizations, the Art of Living and the International Association for Human Values, or IEHV,
Yes.
are involved in some truly global efforts,
Uh-huh.
from promoting peace and sustainable development
Right.
to empowering youth and even working within prisons.
It's really fascinating how he blends ancient wisdom with modern solutions. You know, he's grounded in the Vedic tradition.
Right.
It's a vast body of ancient Indian knowledge, including scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
But he applies these principles to address contemporary global challenges.
Right.
It's a really intriguing approach that goes beyond personal growth and focuses on creating a better world for everyone.
So let's rewind to the beginning.
Okay.
Gurudev was born in 1956 in southern India.
Right.
And it sounds like he was a pretty extraordinary child.
Yeah.
I mean, reciting the Bhagavad Gita at 4 years old.
It certainly suggests an early affinity for spirituality.
Yeah.
And his first teacher, Sudhakar Chaturvedi,
Hmm.
was a scholar who had a direct connection to Mahatma Gandhi.
Wow.
That gives you a sense of the lineage,
Yeah.
a connection to peaceful activism and social change that was present from a young age.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this thread of service woven into his life from the start.
Right.
And then to add another layer to this, Gurudev goes on to graduate with degrees in both Vedic literature and physics.
I think that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
He's not viewing these as separate realms.
Right.
His academic background suggests he sees both science and spirituality as avenues to understand the universe and our place in it.
Now, this is where things get really interesting for me.
Okay.
At 26 years old, Gurudev goes into a 10-day period of silence.
Right?
And from this experience emerges the Sudarshan Kriya,
Yes.
a rhythmic breathing technique that, as you mentioned, has become central to his teachings.
The Sudarshan Kriya is a core practice offered in the Art of Living courses.
Okay.
It's more than just deep breathing. It involves specific rhythms and patterns of breath that are believed to have a profound impact on the nervous system. What's really interesting is that there's a growing body of independent medical research validating its effects.
Oh.
Reduced stress, improved mental clarity,
Yeah.
even positive impacts on physical health.
Wow.
Millions of people worldwide have incorporated this practice into their lives for greater well-being.
So it sounds like this technique was a turning point.
Yes.
Not just for him personally,
Right.
but for what he would go on to create. In 1982, he founded the Art of Living,
That's right.
which offers self-development programs focused on stress management and well-being, including the Sudarshan Kriya.
Yeah.
And these programs are now available in 180 countries.
The Art of Living has a truly global reach.
Right.
And a few years later, in 1997, he co-founded IAHV,
Right.
the International Association for Human Values.
Okay.
IAHV works in conjunction with the Art of Living to implement sustainable development projects, promote human values, and engage in conflict resolution.
Wow.
It's like the practical arm of his vision, translating these principles into tangible actions that address real-world issues.
So we're seeing this unique combination of personal transformation through practices like the Sudarshan Kriya and a commitment to addressing global challenges through humanitarian work.
Exactly.
It's a two-pronged approach, really.
And that's what makes his work so compelling. It addresses both the inner and outer dimensions of human experience, recognizing that individual well-being is interconnected with the well-being of the planet and all its inhabitants.
Now, before we move on to the broader impact of his humanitarian work,
Yeah.
I think we need to dive a little deeper into the Sudarshan Kriya itself.
Right.
I'm curious to understand how a breathing technique can have such profound effects on people's lives.
It's a question that scientists and researchers are still exploring.
Right.
But what we do know is that the Sudarshan Kriya goes beyond simple deep breathing.
Okay.
It involves a specific sequence of rhythmic breaths that seems to influence our physiology in a powerful way. Think of it like this.
Yeah.
You have your heartbeat, you have brainwave rhythms,
Right.
and your breath also has a rhythm.
Okay.
The Sudarshan Kriya seems to work by harmonizing these different rhythms in the body, bringing them into a state of greater balance and coherence.
Okay.
And when these systems are working in sync, research suggests that it can have a cascading effect on everything from our stress levels to our immune function, even our emotional well-being.
So it's not just about feeling calmer in the moment.
Right.
There are actual measurable changes happening within the body.
That's right. And these changes have been documented in numerous studies. For example, research has shown that the Sudarshan Kriya can reduce levels of cortisol, which is a key stress hormone. It can also increase levels of serotonin and dopamine, which are neurotransmitters associated with feelings of happiness and well-being. There's even evidence that it can boost the immune system by increasing the activity of natural killer cells, which are part of the body's defense mechanism against illness.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. It makes you wonder what other hidden potentials lie within our own breath.
It's a fascinating area exploration.
Yeah.
And the research on the Sudarshan Kriya is just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Right.
But what's clear is that our breath is a powerful tool that we can use to influence our physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, exploring Gurudev's early life, his unique combination of interests in both ancient wisdom and modern science, and his development of the Sudarshan Kriya.
Right.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about how this foundation led him to create a global movement for peace and humanitarian action.
That's a great transition, because what's so interesting about Gurudev's work is that it doesn't stop at individual transformation.
Right.
He takes these principles of inner peace and well-being and applies them to some of the most challenging issues facing humanity today. Conflict, poverty, environmental degradation.
And he's not just talking about it, right?
Exactly.
He's actually out there on the front lines working to create real change in some of the most challenging contexts around the world.
And that's what we'll explore next.
Okay.
The breadth and impact of his humanitarian work, from peace negotiations in conflict zones to environmental restoration projects that are impacting millions of lives.
I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, so we've talked about how Gurudev's work extends beyond personal transformation into the realm of global action.
Right.
But what might surprise you is the sheer diversity of the projects he's involved in. His organizations are addressing a wide range of issues, from conflict resolution in places like Kashmir and Iraq to poverty alleviation through educational initiatives.
Wow.
Even environmental restoration projects on a massive scale.
It's like he's looking at all the interconnected challenges facing humanity and saying, okay, how can we bring a more holistic approach to solving these problems?
You've hit the nail on the head. He's not looking at these issues in isolation.
Yeah.
He sees them as interconnected and understands that addressing one often has positive ripple effects on others. For example, one of his most compelling initiatives is the revival of 70 rivers in India.
Okay.
You might think, okay, that's an environmental project.
Right.
But it goes so much deeper. These rivers are lifelines for communities, supporting agriculture, livelihoods, and ecosystems. By reviving them, his organization is not only addressing environmental degradation, but also improving the lives of millions of people who depend on these waterways.
That's such a powerful example of how seemingly separate issues are actually deeply intertwined.
Right.
And it sounds like this interconnectedness is a core theme in his work.
Absolutely. He often talks about fostering a one-world family mentality.
Okay.
It's not about erasing cultural differences, but recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
That our well-being is dependent on the well-being of others and the health of the planet.
I think that's a message that resonates deeply with many people, especially in today's world.
Right.
But let's get specific.
Right.
The biographies we have mention some pretty remarkable examples of his humanitarian work.
Where would you like to start? There are so many examples.
When we talk about peace negotiations in conflict zones,
right.
Can you give us an example of how he's been involved in those efforts?
Sure. One example is his work in the Ivory Coast back in 2011. The country was emerging from a civil war, and tensions were still running high.
Wow.
Gurudev went there and facilitated a dialogue between the government and rebel leaders, encouraging them to lay down their arms and choose peace.
Right.
It was a risky move, but he believed in the power of dialogue to heal even the deepest wounds.
That takes a lot of courage to step into a situation like that.
It does, and he doesn't just show up for a photo op and then leave.
Right.
He's committed to long-term solutions. In the Ivory Coast, for example, His organization provided trauma relief programs for those affected by the war, helping them to heal and rebuild their lives.
So it's about addressing both the immediate crisis and the underlying causes of conflict.
Exactly. And that's a pattern we see in his work around the world.
Yeah.
He's not just putting Band-Aids on problems. He's trying to get to the root of the issue.
Right.
For example, his organization has established over 12,262 free schools in India.
Wow.
Providing education to over 100,000 underprivileged children.
That's incredible.
He believes that education is a powerful tool for breaking the cycle of poverty and empowering individuals to create a better future for themselves and their communities.
That's an incredible investment in future generations.
Right.
And we can't forget his environmental work. You mentioned the River Revival Project.
Yes.
But he's also involved in large-scale tree planting initiatives, right?
That's right. His organizations have planted over 81 million trees globally.
Wow.
And these aren't just random tree planting events.
Yeah.
They're carefully planned projects that are integrated with community needs. For example, in some regions, they're planting trees that provide fruit or other resources for local communities, which not only helps to combat deforestation, but also provides economic opportunities for people.
It's amazing to see how he's weaving together environmental sustainability with social and economic development. It's a truly holistic approach.
Yeah.
But what about his work in prisons? That seems like a very different area of focus.
It is. But it's also a powerful example of his commitment to reaching those who are often marginalized and forgotten.
Great.
His prison program, which is offered through the Art of Living, has reached over 800,000 inmates globally.
Wow. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
What does the program entail?
It's based on the principles of mindfulness, meditation, and yoga.
Okay.
And it's designed to help inmates manage stress, develop self-awareness, and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
That sounds incredibly valuable.
It is, especially in an environment that can be so stressful and dehumanizing.
And the results have been remarkable.
Right. In some prisons, they've seen a significant decrease in violence and recidivism rates.
Wow.
In Uruguay, the program even led to a policy change where inmates who participated were eligible for sentence reduction.
That's amazing. It sounds like his work is truly making a difference in people's lives at all levels of society.
It is.
But I'm curious, how does he manage to oversee all of these projects?
Yeah.
Especially when they're happening in so many different parts of the world.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it speaks to his leadership style. He's not a micromanager. He inspires and empowers others to take ownership of projects and make them their own. He's created a global network of volunteers who are passionate about his vision and dedicated to making a difference.
Yeah.
And this network is constantly growing. Millions of people around the world are inspired by his message.
Wow.
And are actively involved in making his vision a reality.
It sounds like he's created a movement that goes far beyond any one individual or organization.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a collective effort driven by a shared vision for a better world.
And this brings us back to that idea of the one world family,
Right.
the understanding that we're all interconnected and that our individual actions have ripple effects on the whole.
Precisely. He believes that by cultivating inner peace and happiness within ourselves, we can contribute to creating a more peaceful and harmonious world around us.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is. And it's one that we can all strive to embody in our own lives.
Absolutely.
But it's not always easy, is it?
Right.
I mean, the world can feel like a very chaotic and divided place right now.
It can.
Yeah.
How does he maintain that sense of optimism and hope in the face of such overwhelming challenges? That's something I find really remarkable about him.
Yeah.
He acknowledges the darkness, the suffering, the injustices that exist in the world.
Right.
But he doesn't let it overwhelm him. He seems to draw strength from his spiritual practice,
Yeah.
from his belief in the inherent goodness of humanity,
Right.
and from the countless acts of kindness and compassion that he witnesses every day.
It's like he's choosing to focus on the possibilities for positive change, even amidst the chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's a choice we all have. We
Right.
can get caught up in the negativity,
Yeah.
or we can choose to focus on the light, on the potential for healing and transformation.
Speaking of transformation,
Yeah.
I'd love to circle back to the Sudarshan Kriya and explore its role in cultivating that inner peace and resilience you mentioned.
That's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Because while we've been talking about the outward expression of his work through these humanitarian efforts,
Right.
the foundation of it all is this inner transformation that practices like the Sudarshan Kriya facilitate.
And you mentioned earlier that there's a growing body of scientific research
Right.
exploring how this technique impacts the brain and body.
Yes.
I'm really curious to delve into that research and understand what's happening at a physiological level.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just anecdotal evidence.
Okay.
There are real, measurable changes happening within us when we engage in these practices. And understanding these changes can give us a deeper appreciation for the power of breath to influence our well-being.
I'm ready to dive in.
Okay.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
Okay.
We've explored his spiritual journey, his humanitarian work, and even touched upon the science behind the Sudarshan Kriya breathing technique.
Yes.
Now, I'm eager to understand how this technique contributes to that inner transformation we were just discussing.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it takes us into the fascinating realm of mind-body connection.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about the rhythms of the body?
Right.
The heartbeat, brain waves, and the rhythm of our breath?
Yeah.
Well, the Sudarshan Kriya seems to work by harmonizing these rhythms.
So it's more than just taking deep breaths, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a specific technique involved.
It's a precise sequence of breaths.
Okay.
Some slow and calming, others rapid and energizing.
Okay.
This specific combination is what seems to create a shift in our physiological state,
Right.
impacting everything from our nervous system to our hormonal balance.
Wow.
And the research on this is quite compelling.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that practicing the Sudarshan Kriya can reduce levels of cortisol, that's the stress hormone, and increase levels of serotonin and dopamine, which are associated with feelings of well-being and happiness.
So it's not just about feeling calmer in the moment.
Right.
There are actual biological changes happening within the body.
Exactly.
They contribute to that sense of peace and well-being.
And these changes have ripple effects. When we're less stressed, we tend to be more patient, more present,
Okay.
more able to connect with others in a meaningful way.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's like cultivating fertile ground within ourselves for compassion and kindness to flourish.
And speaking of ripple effects, I'm struck by how Gurudev has managed to create such a large-scale global movement.
Right.
His organizations have touched the lives of millions of people around the world. What do you think is the key to his success in mobilizing so many people?
I think there are several factors at play.
Right.
First, his message is one of hope and possibility. He acknowledges the challenges we face as a global community, but he doesn't dwell on the negativity. Instead, he focuses on our potential for positive change, reminding us that we all have a role to play in creating a better world.
Yeah, and I think that message resonates deeply with people, especially in times of uncertainty and division.
It's almost like an antidote to the negativity that we're often bombarded with.
And he doesn't just talk about it.
Right.
He actually empowers people to take action.
That's another key to his success.
Okay.
He's created a framework for action through his organizations.
Right.
Providing people with tangible ways to get involved, whether it's through volunteering, participating in service projects, or simply incorporating practices like the Sudarshan Kriya into their own lives.
And he's also really skilled at building bridges between different cultures and communities.
Yeah, he has this remarkable ability to find common ground, to see beyond the surface differences and tap into our shared humanity.
Yeah.
He often talks about the importance of celebrating diversity, while recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness as a global family.
It's like he's reminding us that we're all in this together, that we have a shared responsibility for creating a more peaceful and sustainable world.
Absolutely.
And that message seems particularly relevant today,
Right.
given the challenges we're facing as a global community.
His work feels more urgent and relevant than ever.
Yeah.
And it's not just about addressing specific issues like conflict or environmental degradation.
Right.
It's about shifting our consciousness, about recognizing that true and lasting change starts from within.
So it's about cultivating inner peace.
Yes.
And then letting that ripple outward,
Exactly.
impacting our relationships, our communities,
Right.
and ultimately the world around us.
That's the essence of his message.
Yeah.
And it's a message that's resonating with millions of people around the globe.
Right.
He's not just offering solutions to problems, he's offering a different way of being in the world, a way that's grounded in compassion, interconnectedness,
Right.
and a deep belief in our shared human potential.
It's an inspiring vision.
It is.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm wondering what you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners.
That's a great question. I think the most important takeaway is that each of us has the power to make a difference. We don't have to be a spiritual leader or a global icon to contribute to a more peaceful and just world.
Right.
We can start by cultivating inner peace and well-being within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that ripple effect will naturally extend outward,
Right.
impacting those around us and creating a more harmonious world for all.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Exactly.
And that even small acts of kindness and compassion can have a profound impact.
As Gurudev often says, we are all drops in the ocean of consciousness. Each drop has the power to create a wave.
So let's go out there and make some waves.
Absolutely. Let's embrace our interconnectedness.
Yep.
Cultivate inner peace.
Yeah.
And work together to create a world where everyone can thrive.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the life and work of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
And if you're curious to learn more,
Yeah.
we encourage you to explore the resources available on the Art of Living website.
Great idea.
There you can find information about his teachings, his initiatives,
Right.
and ways to get involved.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Until next time, keep diving.